Hello everyone and welcome back to the wonderful world of Geoguessr. This is the third episode of our Learn Geoguessr series where we all learn together and get better and grow. And today we're discussing car meta, which is quite possibly the biggest help when playing Geoguessr. And most people don't even realize it because they look at all the other things in the world, but don't look at the Google car itself, which is very, very telling. Now, a lot of places in the world actually have very distinct Google cars that will tell you exactly where you are instantly. And we're going to be going through all of those in this video, as well as the basics of the Google car itself. So you can actually look at different parts of the Google car, which will help you determine where you are in the world based on that. The first and the easiest part of the Google car, I believe, is the roof rack. So this is these bars that come off from the Google car. As you can see here, there's usually 4 things that come off the car because they go across like this. Let's go over some examples of roof rack metas. Now here we have 2 different roof racks. On the left is the one we just saw in Guatemala. On the right is one that's in the Dominican Republic. Now these are the only 2 that are in Latin America. So if you're looking for Latin America, you're going to notice that these are really the only 2, with the exception of Curacao. We'll get into Curacao in a minute. But the one in Guatemala, as you can see, has no strip of black in the middle, but the one in the Dominican Republic does. So this is an easy way to tell a difference between the Dominican Republic and Guatemala. Just look down. If you see this big black strip down the middle of the roof rack, then you're going to be in the Dominican Republic. As we also learned in the first episode of this series, there are only 2 cities, Santo Domingo and Santiago de los Caballeros, in Dominican Republic that you can actually be in. So never click anywhere else but one of these 2 cities. And if you see any mountains, it's definitely going to be Santiago de los Caballeros. Just a quick hint, but you know we won't go into that. This is about car meta this video. Here is the third and final roof rack in the Latin American world, including the Caribbean, of course. And it's Curacao, which isn't a Latin American country. I believe they speak Dutch here, actually. It's a Dutch island, but I could be wrong on that. Maybe it's Portuguese with this. Yeah, it's probably Portuguese, actually, with this name. But they also have a roof rack, and they have a white tape in Curacao on the very back right. So if you see this white tape here, it's going to be Curacao. And here's Curacao on the map, if you don't know. Right by Aruba and this island over here of Bonaire, which is not in the game. But Curacao is. So, yeah, not too bad at all. There are actually 2 more tape metas in the game. The first one is in Ghana. If you see a black tape right here on the front right of the Google car on the roof rack, you are 100% of the time going to be in Ghana. Now, don't get that confused with Reunion Island. Now, Reunion Island is an island kind of by Madagascar, and it also has a black tape, but this one's on the back right, okay? Ghana's on the front right. Reunion Island is on the back right, so that's how you can tell the difference between that. Reunion Island, you can see the front pretty easily with the mirrors and stuff as well, so just keep that in mind. The black tape is going to be on the back in Reunion Island, front in Ghana. So that's pretty much it with the tape meta as far as I'm concerned. Now we're going to go over some of the very distinct cars that you will only see in one place. So if you see this car, you click here. It's just that easy. All right, guys, the first one is Bermuda. Bermuda is an island out here in the Atlantic Ocean. Beautiful little island, actually. They're right up on the left side of the road, and they have this sort of, I'm not really sure what it is, a black pickup truck style. There's no roof rack here, but you will be able to see the Google car itself. It is black, and they drive on the left. And honestly, the vibes here in Bermuda, it's very gettable. So if you see this car, you're gonna want to go Bermuda. All right, so just off of the coast of Nicaragua here and owned by Colombia are these 2 islands of San Andres and Providencia, I believe is how you say it. So let's drop in here to San Andres first. These also have fairly unique cars. This one being a I'm not really sure what to describe this, but I can't move here. Okay, let me find a different location real quick. All right, here we go. So it is the same car as you just saw. This one is San Andres. A bit hard to potentially differentiate between others that we've seen today, but just note that if you think that you're in Colombia, maybe you see a .co or something, but you have this car, you're definitely not going to be on the mainland of Colombia. You're going to be on this island over here. All right, let's drop it into Providencia. Basically, the only difference, I believe, is the color. You might be able to see some different variations, but this one's silver or gray, depending on how you want to call it. But it is a different color. This one's gray in Providencia, and the one down in San Andres, a bigger island down here, is white. So that's an easy way to tell them apart, I guess. The next one I think people should know is Christmas Island and the Cocos Keeling Island. Let's take a look at the Christmas Island first. It's a very small island, but there's a very recognizable car. As you can see, there's not much coverage at all. Not even on every road, but let's just drop it in here and we can see that we have this, what appears to be a flat bed in the back. You can't really see much in the front, maybe a little bit, but the back is going to be pretty given away though where you are here. As you can see in Christmas Island, it's kind of hard to know where you are. Not many clues, but this is what is going to give it away. So here's the Coco and Keeling Island. As you can see, there's even less coverage. Let's go down here, and you should be able to see the car. Yes, we should. So it does look similar to the Christmas Island one, but the main telling thing is this thing in the front. In the front right, I'm not sure what this is, but it's here, and it's on the Cocos Island, and it's not really anywhere else. So if you see this car, definitely go with the Cocos Keeling Island. We're not going to touch Greenland. There's a lot of very specific things in Greenland. There are so many that that could be covered in a different video. But we'll look at one in particular here today. So this is the capital city of Nuuk. I got a perfect score in Insane Guess here once. It's on my very first Insane Guess compilations, which a bit outdated now, honestly. But here we have the Google card. It's hard to see. Maybe we'll move a little bit here to the actual road. But it kind of looks like this. And I thought I had a roof rack, but apparently it does not. But you can see the Google car. And this is in the capital city of Greenland, which is Nuuk. So yeah, here is the Google car. You know, this is what Greenland looks like. It's got a lot of different colored buildings, a lot of red. You know, it's pretty identifiable when you're in Greenland, and this car certainly helps. Now that car is not everywhere in Greenland, as I say. It's really only in Nuuk, and don't think it's really anywhere else. Other cities here have different type of cars. So some of them have boats. I mean, it's a bit crazy in Greenland. It's definitely worth learning, but that is not a beginner. This is a beginner's guide to car meta. Greenland is really not for beginners. The next thing I want to talk about is the Faroe Islands. Now, the Faroe Islands doesn't really have a specific Google car because it's just like a basic roof rack car. However, there's no tape or anything, but you can see the roof rack. You can see a little bit of the mirror as well in the Faroe Islands. The Faroe Islands is fairly easy because look at this. I mean, there's not many places in the world that look like this. So if you see the roof rack and you see scenery that looks like these green sort of, I don't really know how to describe it, but green kind of mountains that have like ridges and stuff in it, and it looks very wet, you're going to be in the Faroe Islands. So just keep that in mind when you see this roof rack here. Can you guys guess where we are based on what we're looking at here? Maybe, maybe not. It's a barren wasteland, truthfully. But this is going to be Mongolia. And how are you going to know that? The Google car. The Mongolia has a giant backpack on the back of the car and also a little roof rack. But most importantly, there's a giant backpack on the back of the car. If you see a giant backpack, you're definitely going to be in Mongolia. Nowhere else in the world do they have this giant backpack. Now, this one is, there might be different backpacks on different cars in Mongolia. I'll show you another example here. So here's another backpack. As you can see, it's a different color. It looks a bit different. And actually, the roof rack's a bit different as well, which is very interesting. I'm not sure why that is. So Mongolia is definitely learnable. There are different cars, and you can kind of know which road has which car, you know, and it's a pretty advanced tip. But if you do see this backpack, you're definitely going to be in Mongolia. So I'm currently in the capital city of Ulaanbaatar. I apologize if I got that pronunciation incorrect. But again, another backpack here in the city and a snorkel, which we'll talk about very shortly. Yeah, backpack meta, huge in Mongolia. I'm trying to find one without a backpack. Here we go, found one, beautiful. As you guys can see, this one does not have a backpack, but we are in Mongolia. So if you do see, there is a black, it's kind of like the Dominican Republic almost with these really big black roof rack stripe. This is actually going to be in Mongolia. Now, you can kind of tell you're in Mongolia based off the overall vibes. You'll see, you know, the language here and just the overall aesthetic of the city. But just because you don't see a backpack doesn't mean it's not Mongolia, is my point here. Another country with a roof rack visible is Kyrgyzstan. Now, Kyrgyzstan is a country that you might maybe confuse it with Mongolia a little bit. You're never going to see the backpack in Kyrgyzstan, though. But what you will see is a roof rack here in Kyrgyzstan. And you will see mirrors most of the time. And there is some meta with the mirrors and stuff like that. I'm not sure how reliable they are. I don't think it's too necessary to learn, and it's definitely not a beginner step. But yeah, here in Kyrgyzstan, which turn the proper layers on here, Yeah, Kyrgyzstan, there's not much coverage. As you can see, there's a lot of coverage by kind of Osh region up by Bishkek and around this lake over here, but a couple of other places as well. But yeah, Kyrgyzstan does have the roof rack, and you gotta watch out for that. Bangladesh also has some roof rack coverage. A lot of it is, there's a lot of different cars in Bangladesh, but as you can see, this one is one of the most common ones, I would say. You'll see what appears to be someone's head here. I'm not sure if that's any meta or not, but they do have the roof rack here, but they also have other cars, so keep that in mind. There will be other things that you'll see in Bangladesh, but don't be surprised if you do see the roof rack. All right, guys, another country is this beautiful country of Loud and Ribbon there, but it looks nice. As you can see, if you try to plot the guy down, look at Thailand, tons of roads, but nothing really in Laos. There's really only a few places in Laos that you can be, and some of them can give away where you are based on the Google car. The first one down south is the little city of Paxi. I don't know if that's how you say it or not, but if we drop our little dude in on Paxi, we have a roof rack. So this is extremely helpful in Lao. If you do see this roof rack right here, you're going to be in Paxi, and if you don't see this roof rack, well, you might be in Vientiane, because there's really no roof rack here in Vientiane. Now, I do just want to point out, as you can see here, this is like a glitched around. Let's move over here, and yeah, nothing in Vientiane. This is the capital city. If we go out of Vientiane, there's a lot of coverage here. So I mean, if you're in Lao, you're probably going to be in Vientiane here. But there's a couple of other cities. I think Vang Ving. Let's take a look. Vang Ving here, it's barely any coverage at all, but we do have a slightly different Google car. It has a little bit of blue in it, it looks like here. This is slightly different than the one in Paxi. So if you can learn the difference between this one and the other one, and learn your way around Vientiane, Laos is almost a pretty easy country to get once you practice a little bit. All right, moving on from the roof rack, I think we've covered it all. I will double check though to make sure. But we're going to move on to kind of our transitionary country, which is Senegal. Now, Senegal used to have a roof rack. They got new coverage. You still might see the roof rack. You still might see it if you're in Senegal. But now they have this pickup truck, which is very, very common and new coverage coming out very recently. You'll see these pickup trucks that basically just puts the camera on the back and drives around. So this is Senegal now. You'll see, if you see this pickup truck here, this one's gray. You might see it in black. You might see it in white. You might see it with different variations on it. You're probably going to be in Africa. We'll go over the countries that have this sort of pickup truck style real quick. Now, not everywhere in Africa got this update. For example, all the countries down here did not. However, Kenya, Rwanda, and Nigeria all have this pickup truck meta. So if you see that, there are really 4 countries that you can be in: Senegal, Nigeria, Rwanda, and Kenya in Africa. There are other places as well, though. For example, we did look at this a little bit in a previous video, but Qatar got a new coverage, and it is kind of the pickup truck. It looks a little different. They all look a little bit different. They all have their little knobs and whistles a little bit, I guess, but they all are in the back of a pickup truck, and you can see the front of it, which, yeah, it kind of sucks because, you know, it's kind of huge. It takes up a lot of part of the screen. So I prefer them not to use this pickup truck in the future, but it is the cheapest way for Google to do this. So I would expect more of this to be added in the future. And here we are in Qatar, really the only place in the Middle East and that you're going to see this. So if you have this type of environment, well, you're going to be in Qatar. Well, as long as you have this truck, of course. Are you struggling with South America? Well, if you are, this is a very easy way to really separate South America into 3 groups of 3 countries, plus Mexico. And the reason being is because of the color of the car. Now, if you're in South America, you may be wondering, which country am I supposed to be in here today? Well, you can turn around and look at the back of the car and see the color of it. Now, there are 3 different cars that you'll see in South America, plus Brazil, which has a whole bunch of ones. But for the most part, you'll see a white or a black car. Let's take a look at the black car. All right, guys, here's the black car. As you can see, pretty distinct from the white one I just showed you. And these are the 2 main South American cars to be concerned with. So kind of a important note to talk about here is the fact that I'm in Argentina. I look down and I don't see the color of the car. So it is important to know that sometimes, you know, basically the luck of the seed, you may not see the color of the car. You know, if you move down the road, it might show up. There it is. It might show up. As you can see, here we have the black car. The black car is found in 3 countries and 3 countries only. Those countries being Argentina, Uruguay, and Peru. Okay, so if you see the black car, you're going to be in one of these three countries when you're in South America. Inversely, the white car is going to be in Chile, Bolivia, and also Peru. Peru has both. All right, Peru has black and white, so you can't really rely on that too much in Peru. But if you do see the white car, you're going to be in Chile or Bolivia. Now, you may notice there are three other countries in South America, that being Brazil, Ecuador, and Colombia. These all have similar cars, but there are some differences. You will only see one car in Ecuador, and it has a stubby antenna on it, and it's also white. Now, you might not be able to see the white. It's a bit harder to see. It's not as obvious as the white car of Chile and Bolivia and Peru. The other two countries sometimes also have antennas, though. Now, just north of Ecuador is Colombia. Colombia is a bit more difficult. There really is not much car meta, which maybe could help you. As you can see, there's no antenna here in the back of this car. It is white, but it's only like this little sliver in the middle. Interestingly enough, you might see an antenna in Colombia, or you may not. It all depends. And there's also a black car in Colombia as well. So as I say, it's not as black as like the Argentina, Uruguay car and Peru, but you might see a little sliver here or there. Colombia, generally don't rely on the car too much for Colombia. And the reason being is because Brazil has not only Gen 4 coverage with like the blue car that we always see, but it also has the similar cars to Colombia and Ecuador, where you'll see a stubby little antenna perhaps. I guess we'll take a look at that. So here we go. We're in the state of Amapa, and we do see a stubby little antenna with these little grooves on it. And we are in Brazil, which it does look like Brazil just looking around here, does it? But you may be confused with Ecuador, maybe even Colombia here a little bit. So it's a bit difficult to know. But the one thing that you should know, that if you do see a antenna like this, you're not going to be in any of these 5 countries down south of Uruguay, Argentina, Chile, Bolivia, or Peru, really. So that kind of narrows it down a little bit for you. Mexico is very similar to Brazil. It has a lot of Gen 4 coverage, meaning you won't see really any antenna. You'll just see the blue car blur. But you also might see Gen 3, which is a white car with a little stubby antenna. Very similar to Ecuador and Colombia as well. It looks a little bit different, but again, the car meta in South America and Mexico can really come into play when you're kind of lost on which one it is, which country is it. So here we are in Puerto Rico. Now, Puerto Rico is a pretty distinct place you might be able to get if you can see this long antenna in the front of the car. If you see this long antenna in the front of the car and you know that you're going to be in South America, Latin America, maybe you're thinking Mexico, but if you see this long antenna, it's going to be Puerto Rico. All right, it's going to be Puerto Rico. That's kind of a dead giveaway. However, there are other places in the world that do use this long antenna. So if you see this, it's not 100% of the time going to be Puerto Rico, but if you get the vibes that it's like an American colony, I guess I shouldn't say that because Guam and Northern Mariana Islands also use this long antenna. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, a lot of people forget that Guam and Northern Mariana Islands are actually in the game, but they are. Let's take a look here. Let's go kind of by the capital of Hagatna, I believe is the capital. I don't know, maybe it's not, but let's hope we get some actual good footage here. And we do. And as you can see, another long antenna here on Guam. So it looks different than Puerto Rico. You might be able to tell the vibes a little bit off. And it looks like there actually is a little bit of a roof rack that you might be able to see. Honestly, I didn't even know that. It's as you can see, it's barely visible. I wonder, it's probably not going to be visible every round. But it looks like it might be a meta here on Guam. Let's take a look at Northern Mariana Islands. So currently on Saipan here, the capital city of Garapan, just on the outskirts. And as you can see, we do have a very long antenna as well. So if you do see this long antenna, you're going to be, and you know that you're kind of like, maybe you're in an American owned island. It's going to be Puerto Rico, Guam, or Northern Mariana Islands. Now, they do have long antennas other places in the world. But this is in the front of the car, and it's pretty distinct, honestly, pretty distinct. The U.S. Virgin Islands, I often forget about these places, but they are pretty distinct. They do have a very similar car to Africa. You never know what's going on here. This came out a long time ago in 2016 as well, but you will see this truck in different colors. I believe it's white. You definitely will see a red car, and I think there's a black one as well. I'll double check. So it's actually incorrect. There's actually only the white and the red car in the U.S. Virgin Islands so far, and it is this pickup truck. As you can see, a little bit of a roof rack here, but it's like on the pickup truck. It doesn't really extend any further out. But yeah, another kind of unique car, I guess, to this area of the world. You may hear a lot of the pro players talk about Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3, Gen 4. These are all generations of the camera itself. Basically, kind of like what year it came out. As new coverage is added, the better quality it is, and therefore it's a new generation. This is the very first generation, Gen 1. As you can see, terrible quality. You can barely see anything. It's very blurry. This, for the most part, is never used in any map. So you won't see Gen 1 unless maybe like you were walking, you're not walking, but you were moving and moving around and you stumble across Gen 1. This basically just means that there's no updated coverage of that particular part of the road. But yeah, Gen 1, this is what it looks like. You can pretty much instantly tell there's a massive blur. It just looks very, very bad. All right, guys, a couple of years later, Generation 2 was released. Generation 2 looks a little bit better. Definitely isn't the best, but you'll notice it's Gen 2 because of a massive circular blur at the very bottom. As you can see, it's a very big circular blur that comes, basically surrounds the car. And it also is above you. So if you see this kind of circular blur in the sky above you, it's kind of hard to see here, but it definitely is there. That's Generation 2. You won't see that in any of the other generations. All right, guys, here Generation 3. Generation 3, we looked at a lot of it earlier in South America. There's a lot of basically any colored car, like the black and white cars that we showed you, is Generation 3. But you can also see it in other places, for example, Europe. And in Europe, you'll notice that it's not a circular blur, but it's basically a blur that kind of covers the car. So it kind of extends out here by the mirrors a little bit, and you'll notice that. And that's Generation 3. There's also a little bit of blur above you, but not as much as the Generation 2 one. You'll see a lot of antennas in Generation 3. That's very common. I believe almost every Generation 3, well, not every Generation 3 has an antenna, but every antenna is just Generation 3, basically. We'll take a look at Gen 4 now. Wow, it's like night and day. Look how good this looks. This is Generation 4. This is actually Finland. And as you can see, we have the blue Gen 4 car. Now, this is one of the most common cars. I show you Finland here because it was recently added, very, very recently. Before, there was only Generation 3 in Finland, but now there's Gen 4. And Gen 4 is very crisp. It's the best that's currently available out there. And as you notice, no antenna, but you will see this kind of blue blur a little bit in a lot of countries. So if you see this blue car, it's mostly definitely going to be Gen 4. And this is kind of like a multicolored blur. Interesting. Yeah, that's what Gen 4 is all about. The reason why I share this is because some countries only have a certain generation. For example, in South Africa, this is very helpful because South Africa, the country here, has Generation 2, 3, and 4 in their country. However, Botswana, Eswatini, and Lesotho only has Generation 3. So if you know you're in this region of the world and you're seeing Generation 2 or 4, you're definitely going to be in the country of South Africa, none of these 3, which is super helpful. Also, here in Malaysia, it's also very helpful because in Borneo Island, Malaysia, all they have is Generation 3 coverage, which is very beautiful because if you know you're in Malaysia, if you Generation 4 coverage, for example, you know you're not going to be over here. You're going to be on this part of the peninsula of the mainland Malaysia. I think I'll be remiss if I didn't mention India at least once. India has a unique, massive blur here. I mean, look at this. It's huge. So if you're looking around, you see, okay, this looks very, maybe you're thinking this could be Bangladesh. If you see this massive blur like this, it's definitely going to be India and a couple places, but probably New Delhi. It might not be though. Don't quote me on that, but I usually just send New Delhi. Kenya, I did mention, had the pickup truck, but you may also see in Kenya what is known as, in the Geoguessr community, the Snorkel. Now, the Snorkel is something that you will see on almost every single car in Kenya. Now, this is the pickup truck, as I mentioned earlier, and it has this snorkel, which you won't really see in any other countries. You did see it in Mongolia, remember? But when you're in Africa and you see this snorkel, it's definitely going to be Kenya. Also, if you see a sign that says Kenya, probably going to be in Kenya, but I'll give you a couple of other examples here. I just want to say that Kenya sometimes does not have a snorkel. This one is near Mombasa, and as you can see, there is no snorkel anywhere on this vehicle that is visible. And as you can see, we do have .ke Kenya, we're here. So unfortunately, it can't be used in every single round. I would say, however, that more often than not, you will see a snorkel in Kenya. Interestingly enough, a lot of the cars in Kenya can be learned. It can be memorized. As you can see, there's some tape or something on this one. The cars look a little bit different. The truck looks a little bit different in different places of Kenya. But one thing that you can almost rely on is the snorkel. There are two countries in the world that use something called low cam. Basically, the camera is a lot lower than other countries. Let's take a look at one of them being Japan. The entire country of Japan uses low camera. Let's drop it in. Hopefully we land on one. And we do, as you can see, we do have the white car. This is generation 3. We do have the white car here in Japan that you will probably see more often than not, but it does look a little bit shorter, doesn't it, compared to other countries that we've been in. We're a little bit lower to the ground. This is an easy way to identify Japan compared to, maybe neighboring South Korea or Taiwan, something like that. The other country that does this is actually Switzerland. Now we got a very nice view of the actual Google car here. And as you can see, the camera is just sitting right on top of this smaller car. And we are a lot lower to the ground, if you notice. Look how short we are compared to in other countries where we're a lot taller. We can see the tops of cars. Here, we're kind of level with them. So if you ever think that you're in Switzerland or Japan, take a look at the height of the car, and that might be able to tell you where you are. But that was a lot of information. I probably missed a handful of stuff that I should have said in this video. It is a lot to go over. Let me know your tips and tricks in the comments below when it comes to car meta. Let me know what you rely on. Maybe there's a country that has something that no other country has that I didn't mention. Leave it in the comments below, and let me know if you learned something. If you learned something from this video, let me know what it was in the comments below, and I will love you forever. Thank you, everybody.